It started on a quiet Wednesday evening, the kind where the world feels half asleep and even the wind moves slow. I had just come home from work, dropped my keys on the counter, and kicked off my shoes when I noticed something odd on my security camera app. A faint notification from the backyard feed. At first, I ignored it. Probably a stray cat, I thought. I lived in a peaceful suburban neighborhood. Nothing ever really happened here. But the alert kept blinking at me, almost begging for attention. When I finally tapped the notification, my stomach flipped. The camera wasn't showing a cat, or a raccoon, or the wind. It was showing a man, human, stepping into my backyard with a flashlight in his hand. And not just any man. My neighbor. The same one who barely said hi, who always watched my house like he was expecting something, who had complained about everything from my lawn to the sound of my garage door. That guy. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to make sure my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. But no. His face came into full view as the motion sensor light clicked on. He froze like a criminal caught in a documentary. He looked around, panicked, then began moving toward my shed. That's when my heart began pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My first instinct was rage, hot, sharp rage. Who the hell did he think he was? Breaking into my property like he owned it. Like boundaries didn't exist. But right behind that anger came something else. A chilling kind of fear. Because anyone bold enough to enter someone's yard at night wasn't just curious. They were dangerous. I grabbed my phone and hit the screen record button. Evidence. I needed evidence. My hands were shaking, but I kept recording. Zooming in as my neighbor twisted the lock on my shed and slipped inside like he'd done this before. Bro, no way. I muttered under my breath. My mind raced. Should I confront him? Should I call the cops? Should I wait? Every option felt risky. But the longer I watched, the more I realized something else. He wasn't just snooping. He was searching for something. He kept lifting boxes, tossing them aside, rifling through shelves like he had a purpose. Like he knew exactly what he was looking for. And that's when the fear settled deeper. How many times had he done this? How long had he been watching my place? I slowly moved toward the back door, barely breathing. My phone was still recording. I turned on the live feed so I could see him while I crept outside. The night was silent except for the hum of the streetlights. As I stepped onto my patio, the door clicked softly behind me. I stepped carefully, slow, silent, trying not to alert him. Every crunch of gravel sounded like an alarm. I followed the camera view on my phone like I was playing a real-life video game. He was still inside the shed, still searching, and then a sound. He knocked something over, a loud metal clank. He paused. I paused. And then he turned towards the door of the shed as if sensing he wasn't alone. That's when I stepped forward. Hey! I shouted. The reaction was instantaneous. He jumped backward, dropped whatever he was holding, and stumbled out of the shed with his hands up like a toddler caught stealing cookies. His flashlight fell and rolled on the grass, casting wild rings of light. What are you doing on my property? I demanded. My voice was louder, harsher than I expected. He stammered. I thought I saw a raccoon. I was trying to help. Help! I stepped closer. By breaking into my locked shed? At night? With a flashlight? He swallowed hard. Sweat glistened on his forehead despite the cool air. It wasn't like that. I heard noises. I just wanted to make sure nothing dangerous was inside. That's a good story, I replied. But my security cameras got the whole thing. You want to try again? His eyes widened as he realized I had him on video. He looked around, panicked, like he was searching for an escape route. But there was none. Look, he said finally. I didn't take anything. Okay, just delete the video and we can forget this ever. No, I cut him off. You don't get to walk onto my property, break into my shed, and then tell me to forget it. His expression changed. His voice grew lower, colder. This doesn't have to get messy, he said. I felt my jaw tighten. It's already messy, I replied. And then, like something out of a movie, red and blue lights flickered down the street. A patrol car approached slowly, headlights slicing through the dark. My neighbor's face drained of color. "Did you call the cops?" he whispered. I looked him dead in the eyes. "No," I said, "but I'm glad someone did." The car stopped at the curb. The officer stepped out, shining a light toward us. My neighbor swallowed, trembling now. Not the tough guy anymore. The officer approached. "We got a call about suspicious activity," he said. "Everything okay here?" I gestured toward my neighbor. "I caught him breaking into my property," I said, "and I have it all on video." My neighbor shook his head frantically. "It's a misunderstanding," but the officer ignored him. "Sir," he said, turning toward me, "can I see the footage?" I nodded and played the video. The officer's face hardened. "All right," he said. "I need you to stay right here." Then he turned to my neighbor. "Sir, hands where I can see them." My neighbor's breathing turned shaky. Wait, I can explain." But it didn't matter. It was too late. As the cuffs clicked around his wrists, he shot me a look. Not of fear, but of hatred. And that's when I realized this wasn't over. Not even close. The night after he was arrested, I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my mind. The look on his face, the cold tone in his voice, the way he had searched my shed like he owned the place. There were questions clawing at me. Why was he there? What was he looking for? And why did he seem so desperate? The police had taken the report, watched the footage, and promised to investigate further. But the officer's last words stayed with me. "Keep your cameras on. People like him don't give up easily." That didn't sit well. The next morning, I stepped outside and noticed something chilling. My backyard gate was slightly open. I knew I hadn't left it that way. A cold wave of realization washed over me. Someone had been there, and not long ago. I checked the camera recordings immediately, but to my shock, the file from 3 a.m. was corrupted. The footage stopped abruptly, as if someone had tampered with it. That's when I upgraded everything. New locks, new cameras, new lights. I wasn't taking chances. Days passed. My neighbor got released on bail, and his return sent a ripple of tension through the entire street. People peeked out from behind curtains. Some whispered, but no one said anything to him directly, except me. The first time I saw him after the incident, he was standing in his driveway, staring at my house with a blank expression that felt more dangerous than anger. I ignored him, walked to my mailbox, and pretended nothing bothered me. But my heart was hammering. I could feel his eyes burning into my back. Over the next week, strange things began to happen. My mailbox was left open. My garbage cans were knocked over. A rock smashed the corner of my wooden fence. Nothing big enough to report. Nothing provable. But everything pointed to one person. He wasn't done. He was sending messages. One evening, as I was reviewing my cameras, I noticed something. A small figure near the fence line. A shadow. Someone standing still watching. I zoomed in. It was him. Just standing there in the dark. Staring into my yard like he was memorizing the layout. Like he was planning something. That's when I realized the situation wasn't just about trespassing anymore. It was about obsession, control, dominance. Whatever he had been searching for in my shed that night, he still wanted it. And he'd do anything to get it. I contacted the officer assigned to my case. "This is escalating," I said. "He's stalking me." The officer sighed. "We need solid evidence," he said. "If you can get more footage, something clearer, we can act." So I began documenting everything. Every sound, every shadow, every camera clip. And then, the night came. Storm clouds rolled in, heavy and angry. The rain hammered the roof like a warning. I sat in my living room, listening to the storm, when suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the backyard. I froze. Another crash. I grabbed my phone, opened the camera feeds, and my blood ran cold. My neighbor was inside my yard again. But this time he wasn't sneaking. He was kicking the door of my shed. Hard. Over and over. Rain soaked him. Lightning flashed behind him, casting his silhouette like a villain from a horror film. His movements were frantic, angry, desperate. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 without hesitation. "Send officers quick," I said. He's back. And he's destroying my property. I stayed on the call as I watched him finally break the shed door. He ran inside and started tearing everything apart like a madman. Boxes flew through the air. Tools clattered. He was shouting something, but the storm drowned it out. Then he found something. He froze. Then he held up a small black pouch. For a moment, I didn't understand. Then the operator asked, "Sir, are you still there?" I answered, voice shaking. "Yeah, I'm here." I think he found what he wanted. The police sirens screamed through the storm seconds later. The lights reflected off the puddles, casting glowing streaks across the lawn. My neighbor bolted out of the shed, clutching the pouch like it was gold. He tried to run through the back fence, but officers surrounded the yard, shouting commands. He slipped in the mud, fell, scrambled, but it was over before it began. They tackled him and wrenched the pouch from his hands. One officer opened it. Inside was a flash drive. Confusion filled the officers' faces. One turned to me. "Is this yours?" I shook my head. "I've never seen it." My neighbor screamed from the ground. "That's mine! He stole it. He stole everything." Lightning flashed across the sky as the officers cuffed him again. "What's on this drive?" one officer asked. My neighbor glared up at me with pure hatred. "You ruined everything," he hissed. But the officers weren't buying any of it. They searched his pockets and found tools, gloves, and a lockpick set. They had everything they needed. He was arrested. Again. But this time, it wouldn't be temporary. Hours later, at the police station, officers reviewed the drive. Turns out, it contained evidence of his illegal activities. Hidden bank transfers, encrypted files, proof he'd been using multiple identities, and possibly more crimes under investigation. He hadn't been looking for my stuff. He'd been hiding his. And when he realized he had misplaced the pouch weeks earlier during a backyard boundary dispute, he became obsessed with retrieving it, no matter the cost. Breaking in wasn't about stealing from me. It was about recovering his secrets. The detectives thanked me for the footage, the recordings, the timeline I had built. I had unknowingly helped expose something much bigger than a trespassing neighbor. When I finally got home, exhausted and shaken, the storm had passed. The sky was quiet again. But my yard, my shed, my peace would never be the same. I installed new fences, reinforced doors, more cameras, better alarms, and slowly the neighborhood returned to normal. But sometimes, late at night, when the wind blows or the motion light flickers, I still feel that old fear. Because once they violate the place you call home, you never really forget it. And you never fully trust the quiet again.